All right, great. Okay, so maybe let's start off with a little bit about like how long you become a product manager. Like how long have you been a product manager, and how did you come into the role? How did you become a product?
I'm sorry, is that for me?
Yeah, for Raf, yeah. That's for
Sorry,
you.
sorry. So yeah. So I became a product manager pretty much by accident. I kind of slowly like transitioned into the role. I was initially an operations manager for this small startup offering student loans. It was called EduCredit. I was hired as an operations manager, but obviously, since we were pretty much starting everything from scratch, there wasn't really any operations at all. So a lot of the role that I was doing was pretty much like experimentation with our value propositions and talking to customers and all that stuff. I didn't know that those were pretty much aspects of product management. So the transition into the role of PM was kind of smooth. That company eventually closed down. I got hired as a PM for Xenia almost a year ago, and it was a unique chance because Xenia didn't have a PM at that moment. So when I joined, I kind of owned the whole thing right away, and it was like I was thrown into the ocean, and I was kind of learning as I go. It was very hard, but I like it. The way I learned was pretty much through experimentation, since I didn't really have a mentor. A lot of studying by myself, getting mentorship, sometimes from meetups like this. I joined a few with Yana, and yeah, that's pretty much how I got into the role, product management.
Great. Okay, thank you, Raf. How about you, John? Like, how did you come into the role of product management? What was your journey like?
Yeah, it's pretty much almost similar to story of Raf, what Raf mentioned. So it came kind of accidental, and maybe I'll go a bit personal here. So I used to work under business development with an IT distribution company. So while as you may know, like IT is really diverse. So we were handling more the network and security side, not much on the software product development side. But that was, I think, around 2016 when I was supposed to go to the US for my master's in finance because I originally came from the financial industry and I wanted to shift back into it. But fortunately, some things happened here and there, so I didn't push through. Then I got an opening for a product management role with B-Stripe, which is a digital marketing company based in Hawaii. And I was thinking to myself, probably this is the same product management that I did in sales. So I was like, okay, good. So when I went in, I was like, oh my gosh, what is agile? What's all this stuff? So I was like totally caught off guard. And not being biased here, but one of the major proponents and how I transitioned into the role was joining organizations like Product PH, where you get to discuss with other peers how is it like in other organizations, and really learning continuously even up to now and in the future, I'm pretty sure. So and from that point on, I started trying to learn every day and trying to talk to peers and colleagues from different organizations.
Right, and you then shifted to a new organization, right? So from your previous organization, when did you join your current organization now, WebFontaine?
So so right after jumping into a PM role in around 2016, 2017, after 1.5 years, I joined a local fintech startup as a product owner. Then after about 2 years, mid-pandemic, that's the time I joined here in WebFontaine.
It's always interesting to kind of join a new organization in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's true.
Has set some set of challenges, which we'll dig into later. So first, we'll go to and maybe Max, can you share a little bit about your journey? How did you come into product management? Has that been your role ever since?
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny because it's also by accident, like Ralph and John. I actually arrived in the Philippines 2 years ago, and I started to work as a strategy operation manager. So basically, my role was to think about the sales strategy, think about the operations optimization, review our process. The thing is, when you are working in operation management in fintech, you need a lot of data. And at that time, we have nothing to, we have no infrastructure to be able to extract the data, store it, and basically do our analysis. So I transitioned from a strategy operation manager to head of data. And I work during 1 year and a half, about 1 year actually, in building a data team. So I really transitioned from like operation to data. It was already a bit weird. And at the end, basically we had a VP product at Uplon and left the company. So there was an opportunity open, and our CEO came to me and asked me if I wanted to try to build and continue building the product team. So basically, what is interesting is my past experience as a strategy operation manager and as a head of data give me not probably all product skills, but enough skills to be able to give a direction and try to help people building this amazing product team that we are trying to build at Uplon.
Right. So that's really interesting. So you came into a product management,
yeah,
immediately became a manager of other product managers right away.
Yep.
So that's really interesting. Okay. So which we'll dig into more later. But just going back to Ralph, so it seems like what you guys have management, so you didn't necessarily seek out the role, at least initially. So you kind of fell into the role. So for Ralph in particular, so you said you had so in the beginning when you were at EduCredit, was it?
Yes.
Like how did that transition happen from being an operations guy to a product management guy? Like was there like a formal change? Did you unpack more how that happened?
Yeah. So the transition happened this way. Like a lot of the tasks and jobs that I was doing, I started to question. This is not really operations. And I talked to the founders. How do you really imagine me to do this role? I asked that, and talking together, and it seems like I might be a better fit in product. And they explained to me what is a product manager because I had really no idea what was a product manager back then. And so when we did that, we were able to identify what skills that I needed to work on to really own that role, right? So that really helped me because I had like a marker of things that I needed to pretty much learn the next few months. And yeah, that's what I used to pretty much drive my learning towards product management.
And you said management kind of identified a set of skills, so they must have seen something in you to kind of encourage you to transition to becoming a product management. So what were those skills that they that was identified? You think it's key to product?
Yeah. So I started my career as a customer experience analyst for First Circle. It's also a fintech company. Pretty much my role there was handling customer feedback and be the enabler of the sales team. So pretty much, how to make their lives easier. So to be able to do that job effectively, I had to teach myself a few things like design thinking, how to talk to customers, how do we collect feedback in a structured way so that I can hand that over to the product team. I was able to develop those skills that kind of easily carried over into product management. And that's kind of what the founders saw in me. That's why they kind of pushed me towards product management.
and then eventually you said, so Edu Credit kind of closed down, and then you transitioned to a new role. So when you first joined, I imagine that was really the first time you applied formally for the role of product management, right?
Yep.
So describe a little bit what the interview was like. Like this was your first time interviewing for a product management. What were the things, and was it consistent with the expectations from you in Edu Credit? Was it the same, or how was it different?
Yeah. Actually, the interview process for Xenia was, I would say, a little bit unconventional. The main test that they really gave me was, checking out that I'm not an idiot. But but what they really tested me on is if I am a problem solver. How do I approach problems? How do I attack it? Like, do I break it down to the smallest parts? Because that was what they were looking for initially. Just how do we solve problems through technology? And I was able to pass that mainly because I aside from my experience doing design thinking, all of that stuff, on the side, as a hobby, I kind of taught myself how to code. I just like building things, so I did some front end work, did a little of Python. So that kind of thinking really structured me, I guess you could say, and it was very beneficial for the role. So yeah.
All right, great. So for John, how was your experience? It sounds like from what Raf has shared, it sounded like having that customer experience, talking to customers, being able to have an analytical thinking, being a problem solver, and also being a little bit technical. So you mentioned being able to do some Python. How about you, John? Was it the same expectation when you applied for product management roles?
Yeah. So shifting into software product management, there were several skills that really came in handy. Number one, like coming from business development, communication is key. So managing all these stakeholders, managing your own team internally, and on the other side, talking to your users as well and gathering their feedback. It really helped. And even from a product perspective, building the different channels of your product, that's also quite helpful to have in your pocket. But on the other side, one of the skills as well is to be well versed in, or not exactly really well versed, but rather be familiar with technical lingo on the engineering side. So that you can be the bridge between your stakeholders on the business side and your team on the technical side. So yeah, I had to learn coding again, which I haven't done since seventh grade, I think. So I spent a few months trying to learn how to code as well. Aside from product PH, I've been trying to attend different UX events during that time to gain more knowledge on design and especially design thinking. And uh, my peers from different departments really helped. Like for example, from the marketing side, understanding the different analytics that you need to identify, like your conversion, the cost that you incur per clicks, the revenue that you're getting from all of those. In terms of, for example, performance marketing, which obviously does, first time I was handling that, it really helped, joining organizations and talking to people who are well versed in that. So, yeah, in a way, orchestrating this whole package produces, a good product manager, I believe.
Okay. And then for Max, for you as a manager of other product managers, what are the criteria? What are the things you look for when hiring?
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
Sure.
Sorry.
So as a manager of other product managers, somebody who leads a team, what are the things manager or your product manager? What are the things you look for?
Okay. Um, Actually, so I think the first thing is probably critical thinking. Being able to think about, a situation, a problem, and try to consider the different solutions, their pros and cons, and being able actually to also debate with other people about the solution. So for me, critical thinking is quite essential as a product manager. The second thing is probably empathy. You need to understand the position of your customer, what they are thinking, but also the position and the responsibility of all the stakeholders. So as a product manager, you need to interact with marketing, sales, engineering, operation, support. All the function, legal, finance, so all the function of the company. And each one of those functions have a different way of thinking, right? Which is specific to their job and their daily task. So it's, empathy is super important in that kind of situation. Because if you don't have empathy, you're going to get super frustrated first. And so, yeah, critical thinking and empathy. And I think, so nowadays, the role of product management for successful companies is really driven by new technology. So you need to have these, at least this interest and this eager to learn more about new technology, new solution, and live in an environment where you will be close from those problematics.
All right, great. And now let's talk about now you've been hired into this new role, this new organization. Now let's talk about what is it that you first do, in your first few days in the job. So maybe we can start with John this time. So John, I know you're new to this organization. So tell me a little bit about how was it to start? What were the things you tried to do in the first maybe 30 days, the first month?
Sorry, was that a question for this organization or when I went?
For this one.
Oh, for this one.
For this current organization, because you're new, right? Sorry, you're new. Or even drawing from your past experience, what did you set out to do in your first 30 days?
Okay. It was pretty similar. The main difference is that now I got onboarded 100% virtually. So that was really something interesting. The first 30 days.
So just on that, how was it? How is it different being onboarded virtually, and what were the kind of unique aspects to it?
Oh, that was really challenging. Well, number one, having video conferences, having formal wear, wearing shorts at the bottom was really weird. but the personal touch into it, it's really quite something. It's very different, peculiar at some point, where once you get introduced personally, it really makes a difference in such a way that it's so easy to approach the different people that you need to talk to, as compared to onboarding virtually, where you can't really do the usual soft skills that you do, when you say, oh hey, you want to grab coffee and talk for quite a bit. You can't really do that. You have to assert yourself virtually. So that was really challenging. But in terms of at least the first 30 days, what was similar was that it's really about learning about everything, learning what they do, learning about the role that even though you may be a product manager here. I mean, in this case, I may be a product manager in Webfontaine and then Bstripe as well. But, in different organizations, the role actually differs. And, understanding the organization, how they work and what products do they have, that's another thing. And number three is basically understanding the entire network of the organization, where is it placed in the spectrum of the industry. So the first 30 days, I would say, is really, it's most of it was dedicated to learning.
Learning. So you said learning about the company, the product, of course, and about the dynamics, I guess, of the industry you're in, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, very good, very good. And then Raf, for you, so you've been in Kenya for quite a while. So describe a little bit like the first, let's say the first 60, 90 days. Like how did you transition from learning about the company, the product, to learning? What else did you try to do in those first 3 months, let's say?
Yeah. But for me, I guess the first 3 months was very critical because I'm joining as this young product manager, like supposedly leading this product team, and one of the first things that for me I needed to do was gain the trust of these people because you're pretty much leading the group, right? So a few ways that I did that, just being consistent, being there, and also you're not the expert yet. So I leaned a lot on my technical leads, my designers who's been there longer. So really picking their brain and trying to understand really how things work in the company. That's pretty much the fastest way you can get that information. So pretty much like breaking down those knowledge silos and absorbing everything. So that's kind of like probably first 2 months. In my 90 days, it's really aligning with leadership on like where you want to go. So really just picking their brain, and so your decision is pretty much aligned with whatever they envision the company to be. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did for my first 16, 90 days.
So something you said, like I wanted to kind of dig into a little bit more into something that you said. So you mentioned that you were expected to be like the product manager, to be the product expert, but you're also new to the organization. So what did you do to build up that product knowledge and also build your credibility as an expert in the product? Like how did you do that?
Yeah. So whenever we're fixing tackling complex problems, I made sure that we do it collaboratively together, like with the leads and the designers, just because those are the chances that you can get to really understand how things work deeply, right? Initially, I didn't do that, to be honest. I relied on solving problems by myself, just reading the documentation available, and it was very hard. I didn't get anywhere. But slowly I realized, okay, collaboration is a lot better. And yeah, it's been working fine.
So that's a good point. So you on hindsight, you said collaboration is better. But now maybe like in John's situation, maybe things a little bit more challenging now. Like if you were to put yourself in John's shoes, trying to become the product expert in Xenia, and everyone was working from home, like how would you do it now? Like what would your advice be to people who are now, new to education, and then really ask the person next to them, like what would you do now?
Yeah, I actually am still having trouble actually collaborating online. We make sure that we have we meet virtually every day. So we make sure we make moments that we can meet and talk. It doesn't really matter what those moments are, but we just make sure it happens. But yeah, there's probably better ways to do it, to be honest. I'm not sure how. If you have suggestions, that'd be great.
You can post a question to the audience, and then we can tackle that later. But that's a good point. And then maybe let's move on to Max. So Max, yours is kind of a unique situation. When you became manager, you immediately became a leader of other product managers, and maybe some of them may be more experienced than you. So is that correct? Can you describe a little bit what that situation is like, being asked to become a product manager leader right away?
Yeah. So actually, you're right. I think more than half of the team is older than me, and have probably 5 to 10 times more experience than me. So it was quite challenging. Also, the second thing that was challenging, and I think I don't know if it was super challenging, but they were already knowing me as head of data. So I was really transitioning the role, and I needed to build somehow the trust from them, but also trying to listen at their problem, trying to stabilize the team because the manager just left. So it was the mood of the team was kind of down. And yeah, so basically the 31st day was mostly focused on trying to exchange and learn from the team because some of my managers are actually much more experienced than me. And on the other side, one thing that was super challenging is that I think after 1 week, I've been asked by our investor to provide a 1-year strategy. So basically, you just start in the role, and someone tell you, okay, in 1 week you need to provide us a 1-year strategy. So it was quite a challenge, but fortunately, I've been able to be helped by mentors and people that believe in me. So I deliver a first version, a second version, we improve it, and everything went fine. But yeah, if I have to summarize the first 90 days, so it was really learn. And I was spending my weekend reading books and trying to understand what was my previous mistake, how can I improve that. I was spending a lot of time also talking with, for instance, our head of design, because I was knowing nothing about design. And I was also trying to learn about how to, for instance, build a 1-year strategy and how to communicate to investors, which are quite picky most of the time. And yeah, super intense, but extremely interesting. And I think it's probably the 3 months of my life where I learned the most.
All right, great. And so you mentioned something interesting. So you came into the role where there was a previous leader from Chambers, where you had to you said you had to stabilize a little bit the team dynamics and a little bit. So how did you kind of manage? How did you make sure that there was a either between your product managers, the product management team, or even with the engineering team? Like what did you do to kind of foster a good working relationship right away?
Yeah, so I really relied on my product leads because I needed to understand first the health of the team. So we asked a question as a product manager, I had few discussion, and I tried to understand what was good in the past, what was not good. And I identified that the first problem was lack of direction. So it was 6 months that basically the direction was, I think, kind of unclear. And because when the direction is unclear, you tend to have, to do all requests from, for instance, operation. So they were stuck in a situation where actually they were stuck in a feature factories. I don't know if you know that expression, but it's basically when you are spending your days receiving requests from operation and trying to solve everything. So we really tried to change that. The first thing that actually for us to be able to foster and focus more on collaboration was to set a strategy and focus actually on execution. And then right now, we are, now that we have somehow stabilized the strategy, we are starting to increase progressively the collaboration within the team and make sure that we have the to exchange to build solution together. And as it was mentioned, it's actually, it was also particular because we were in the middle of the Corona crisis. So it was my also first time managing people virtually all the time and collaborating virtually. It's, how do you do it, right? It's, you can't really exchange and stuff. So for that, actually, we find some tools that allows us to collaborate in an easier way. So for instance, I saw that you were using Miro, tools like this, and being able to build and try to solve problems collaboratively also help us a lot.
All right, great, excellent. Okay, so John, so when you started out in the role, now that you're in Web Fontaine, like describe a little bit like how did your manager tell you your to share with you your performance you managed, like what are the did you have a set of KPIs or goals that you had to meet, and then what was the process like of understanding how to meet those goals?
Well, it's actually a good question. Right now, so I joined WebFontaine October of 2020. So it's my fourth month now, fairly new. And when I joined the company, I was joining in the middle of a transformation phase. So WebFontaine had a different structure back then. And right now we were trying to, well, at least during the time that I joined, we were trying to streamline the process to facilitate it into a more global scheme. So since WebFontaine has different R&D centers globally, what we wanted to do was to cover all projects from different regional offices. And yeah, in that process, we were still in the in the in the works of identifying those KPIs, even up to now, and even the overall business objectives at the team level. So that's why the being in a PM role is quite diverse, because at one point you can be um, understanding analytics and all of that, but on another point in time you may be optimizing processes, you may be trying to streamline teams internally and externally. So yeah, so it was quite a different challenge to take on.
Right. Okay. And for you, Ralph, like now you've been in Zenya for quite a bit. How do you know? How do you measure? How does the organization measure your success, and how do you yourself measure your success?
Yeah,
How
sure.
do you know you're succeeding in the role?
Yeah. Okay. So in Xenia, we use a very probably, I guess you could say, light version of OKRs. So we pretty much decide what outcomes we want to achieve, like per month or quarter, and it's pretty much on us, the product team, to decide how we get to that outcome, right? So setting up the criteria for success is pretty collaborative, I guess you could say. It's not somebody just saying hit this number. It's us discussing, kind of pitching why this is the criteria of success for us, because it'll lead to this kind of outcome. So so it's different every quarter, pretty much. So yeah, collaboratively, I guess you could say.
Right. And then since then, has Zenya? So you mentioned you were the only product manager in the beginning. Is it that
Still am. We are also looking to hire more. It's becoming overwhelming, to be honest. So.
And when that happens, let's assume, I don't know if you've already talked about this before, but when the organization adds an additional product manager, like how do you think like how would that be managed? Like would you divide the work between yourselves, or is how would that transition from one product manager to two product managers be handled?
Yeah. So yeah, we have had that conversation. The way we want to do it is, so we do have a few product verticals, right? So it's probably me owning my own product, and that you guys owning their own. So it's probably your B2C and B2B products separating.
And then for this new product manager, since there'll be like a separation of areas, right, or separation of concerns, like how would you, for this new product manager, how would you, maybe as a peer or as a more senior person, how would you if somebody were to join tomorrow, like how would you help that person succeed in this in the new? What would be your, how would you help this new product manager?
We believe really in giving like critical feedback. We're very self-critical as a team. So we really try and figure out what are our weakest parts and try and let that person develop in those areas. From experience, not for everybody. Some people don't like feedback like that. But hopefully this new person will be receptive to that kind of thing.
Okay. So you'll be this person critical feedback to ensure that they'll become successful in the role. They'll have feedback on how to be more effective in their role, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then for you, Max. So for you, you're no longer an individual contributor. Like, is there a difference in how you were measured before, or how the organization would measure your performance, or different to your perspective? How is it different as a manager versus, let's say, when you were an individual contributor?
Yep. Actually, so at Uplon, we are using the OKR methodology. So it's for those who don't know, it's objective key result. So the goal is to structure a set of objectives by quarter with some key metrics. So basically, each quarter we are setting this objective for the product team, and I'm evaluating myself on my capacity to set the proper objective and deliver on the plan. So it's really a matter of being able to bring some predictability and set the right objective for the team. And so being able also to detect upfront the risk and mitigate them. So this is mostly on the execution part. Then I'm also evaluated based on the health of the team, and for instance, the people that we bring on board, making sure that we have a strong product team. The third part is for sure strategy. If I manage to bring visibility over 1 year, if I manage to bring fresh ideas, if I manage to collaborate with the executive team so that we can build the strategy together and everybody feel to be a part of it.
All right. Excellent. Okay. All right. So I have a few sets of questions left, but before I ask a few questions, so for the audience, I encourage you. So if you have questions, please feel free to start thinking about them. We'll ask you to share your questions for our panelists. So if you have burning questions or anything you're curious about, we'll ask you to also ask those questions yourself. Or if you're a bit shy, you can also type in the chat. All right. Okay. So last set of questions. So let me go back to Raf. So now that you're, now so interesting. You're looking for a product manager. You're hiring product manager, and then you've been in Xenia for a couple of years now. Like, if you were to give some people in the audience maybe transitioning to a new role, becoming a first-time product manager, or transitioning to a new organization, joining, they may be experienced product managers, joining a new organization. What would be your advice to that person?
Sure. So I'm gonna base this from my experience. Probably the only reason that I survived, joining Xenia as a new product manager is I had this hunger to learn, really, because product management is very wide. There's a lot of things, different aspects of it, right? And if you don't have the attitude of just being hungry to learn, your transition is going to be very hard, because you're expected to be good in lots of different areas, and it's up to you to really speed up your improvement in each of those. So yeah.
All right, great. Okay, John, for you the same question. What would be your advice to somebody who's become, transitioning to a product management role for the first time or joining a new organization?
Yeah, I think I'll stem out from what Raf said. Keep learning. Continuous learning is really the key to it. And don't be afraid to take on the role. Most of the stuff and being a PM are things that you are already doing in life. Like for example, in lean startup, we're taught to go to the cycle of building a product to an iteration, measuring it, then do we pivot or persevere by learning it? So that whole process of building, measuring, and learning, we actually do it in the decision that we make from the time you wake up to the time you fall asleep. So these aren't new things. It's just a matter of placing these things that we know into perspective. So yeah, don't be afraid, and yeah, pretty much continue learning.
All right, excellent. Okay, and then for Max, I'm going to ask a slightly different question. For somebody who is transitioning to a product management, a PM leadership role for the first time, like yourself, like you transitioned to a product leadership role, what will be your advice taking on leadership role for the first time?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part of the question?
Sure.
I did not hear. Sorry.
Sure. So for somebody who is transitioning to a product leadership role for the first time, what would be your advice?
Okay. So I think it's all about structuring is our own learning path, right? So the first thing that you need to ask to yourself is, okay, what I know today, what I don't know today, and then find someone, a mentor or some mentorship, so that you are able to also identify the unknown. So basically, what you don't know that you don't know. And so, yeah, it's the learning curve can be pretty steep. So it's really important to organize yourself and trying to find good content or good people to talk to, so that you are going as fast as possible. So in my situation, I know that as a head of data, for instance, the analytics was okay. I also manage sales and marketing in the past, so I knew that okay, I understand what the sales team were trying to do, what the marketing team was facing, so it was okay. What I didn't know was actually all the, I think, design thinking part, all the strategy part, and it's it's kind of hard because as Raf said, it can be super wide. So, for instance, if you start searching content on Medium, it's gonna be a rabbit hole. You're gonna spend days and weeks, reading at articles where everybody have a different methodology, and you don't understand why. So it's really important to structure things and to say, okay, what do I need to learn? What are the few steps? And instead of looking actually at I think articles. There is articles online. There is a lot of books that can learn you. So there is people like Geoffrey Moore that have written like amazing books. There is a lot of books about product management. So it's mostly I think first advice. Actually, two advice. First, structure your learning curve, your learning path. Second, find mentors to help you knowing what you don't know. The third one might be you will be easily overwhelmed by question, by tasks, by requirements, by a lot of things, because the expectations are super high. Basically, you are in the middle of most of the time 5 to 10 teams. So basically, it's coming from everywhere. So you really need to, I think, manage expectation and said that, okay, in 3-6 months, I'm going to focus first on that. It's going to be slow, but you need to give me this luxury of having my focus. If I don't have it, I won't succeed. And yeah, you need somehow to build your own working agreement with all the stakeholders to protect yourself from the noise.
All right. Sound advice from everyone. Okay, so we're at the top of the hour. We wanted to make sure that we have time for questions. Yana, are there any questions from the audience? Maybe we can call someone, kind of share a question.
Yeah, there's question on the chat.
Okay, let me see. Okay, so let's put Meg. Meg, do you want to ask a question, or should I just pose it? Do you want to come online and ask the question?
Yep.
If not, I can ask the question. So I'll just read your question on chat, from the chat. Okay, so Meg just pop in, just chime in if you want to ask. But Meg put in the chat, what book? So I think Max mentioned reading and so on. So are there any books you recommend for Max? Any PM books you recommend?
Me? Yeah. So.
For Max.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So PM book. So basically, there is a one which is quite famous. It's called Crossing the Chasm from Joe Fremo. Actually, it's Jan that recommended this book to me. So thanks, Jan. I think also what might be helpful is all the theory about design thinking. So you can have a look at basically the the content that has built IDEO, which is like the company that created design thinking. And I think overall, a book which is not really known and that I like, it's called Cracked It. So it's not a book about product management, but it's a book about problem solving. And basically they are explaining you the different theory of problem solving and how and when to use them. So it includes design thinking, but not only. Because so just to let you know, we are a lot of people are speaking about design thinking, but it's not the only methodology to solve problem. There is much more, and sometimes actually design thinking just can't work. So you need to understand to not fall in some trap. You need to understand also what is the global methodology of problem solving. And so, this book is actually that I'm talking about. It's called Cracked It. So I'm gonna put a message in the chat because I don't know if it's you can understand what I say with my accent.
Thank you, Max. And then Raf, any books you recommend?
Yeah.
Any, authors or whatever.
Yeah, one book that really helped me was the Lean Product Playbook. I forgot the author, but it's an amazing book. It has lots of tactical things that you could use, from like product discovery to product delivery. I use it every now and then, to when I encounter a problem, I kind of go back to it and use one of those things that they've discussed. It's an awesome book. I highly recommend it because it covers pretty much a whole range of things that involve product management, right? From talking to customers to, doing design thinking, to how you prioritize features and all that. Highly recommend it. Yeah.
All right. Great. Thank you, Raf. How about you, John? Any?
Yeah, I go back to the one I mentioned earlier. So it's one of the first books that I've read when I started product management. It's called The Lean Startup from Eric Rice. I think it's a classic. So it basically, we've always, one of the first things that we hear is the term agile and, agile principles being incorporated especially into software development. It kind of puts a lot of these things into perspective. Like, we can go deep into agile, like, we can implement Scrum on a more nitty-gritty perspective, or we can do Kanban. But, Lean Startup kind of puts this into perspective. It follows this simple cycle of building, measuring, and learning. And I think for especially for products that are catering to B2B or business or even B2C customers, it puts everything into perspective because every iteration makes more sense. It gives meaning to every sprint or every leg or every feature that we release out there. So yeah, highly recommend that.
Oh, all right. Okay. Thank you, John. Okay. So the next question is from Jerry. Jerry, do you wanna ask the question? Do you wanna come online? Jerry, just chime in if you want. The nice thing about chiming in is you can ask a lot of questions from our panelists. Okay, if none, so Jerry, just come online if you wanna ask. But if none, I will just read your question. Okay. For those of us suffering from the imposter syndrome and hesitant to take on the role, what do you think is the worst thing you can do as a PM? Okay, so maybe one take this question. For those of us suffering from the imposter syndrome and are hesitant to take on the role, what do you think is the worst thing you can do as a PM? And then there's also a follow-up question. What to get a manager? Okay, so who wants to take on this question? Anyone?
The imposter syndrome thing. Yeah. So I still feel that like most of the time, really. But like for me, I've learned that if you've done the work, you've like one of the main jobs of a PM is really mitigate all the risks, right, up front. And once you've done everything and you feel like you've done the right methodologies and you've presented to all the stakeholders and people involved, usually that feeling kind of goes away because you give it your best. So it just goes away for me, at least. Hopefully it does for you.
John, do you wanna tackle that question as well?
Yeah, typically I would say fake it till you make it, but obviously that was a question. So no one, I think, even outside of product management, I think no one gets it right the first time. So that's why continuous learning is so important. We learn in every step of the way. The important thing is that we improve. The very essence of product management is number one is to build the right product, and number two is how to build the product right. And we can only marry these two things if we continuously experiment and we continuously learn with the different, whether it be the processes, whether it be the exact product features, whether it be the structure of the team. It should always be revolving. So yeah, don't be afraid to try out different things. That's what I would say. Not really fake it till you make it, but rather try new things and try to see, is this valuable? Do we pivot or do we persevere?
All right. Okay. And then for Matthew, the next follow-up question: what could get product manager fired?
Oh damn. Why me?
Manager.
Okay. So it's a good question. No, it's a super tough question actually, but no, I guess I mean, product management is also trying to create a balance between within a team, right? So you are in the center of everything, and you need to gain the trust of the development team. You need to gain the trust of all the stakeholders. I think the most important role of the product manager is to manage to maintain this balance and manage to keep that drive. If the balance is not there anymore, if somehow the trust is gone, it's gonna be super hard for you to succeed. So I think it's a necessary condition for you to properly do that work. Just to clarify what I'm saying here, so sometimes the trust can be down, right? Its trust is not something constant. We can't even measure it. So it's really something that you need to sense. And when you have like weak signal on the fact that people are losing trust or people have doubt, it's important just to like set a call with them, take time to listening to their problem, what is provoking their thought, and think about how to improve it. So yeah, basically, I think so. I think it's not about fired, but a product manager will really. I mean, I think a product manager will not fail if we, for instance, deploy a product that is not successful the first time. There is this pedagogy of error, so it's really not important. But I think a product manager will fail if he is losing trust and if not able to balance the team and the stakeholders anymore. Was it a good answer?
All right. Okay. Any follow-up questions from our audience?
I think the Meg is asking additional question. Other question. So
Okay.
how does
yes.
okay.
Go ahead, Diana.
So how does someone who is in the engineer or development team shift to product management?
All right. Who wants to take this question on? How does someone who is in the engineering or development team shift to product management? Anyone? So Max, maybe you came from not really engineering, but data science, right? So how did you? What would be your advice?
Okay. So the CEO of the company proposed me the job mostly because I think I was understanding the business, how it was working. And also, I have these capabilities of also understanding like marketing, finance, and engineering. So, you know, the good news is if you are already an engineer, you have an asset, which is you understand what is the development cycle, you understand the mechanic of an engineering team, you probably understand also what is the Scrum framework. I think to position yourself as a product manager, you need to show that you also understand the mechanic of the business. And you need probably to show that you have maybe not all methodology and all, product tricks, etc. It's not really important, but at least that you can provide a plan. Even if it's not perfect, just provide a plan. Say, okay, for that company, there is this problem. I think that we can solve it by setting this objective. Here is my plan. If you manage to do that, put something on the table and ask for being a product manager. If someone is refusing that to you, just apply somewhere else.
Right. Excellent. Okay. John or Raf, I know you came more from a business operations, but do you have any advice? Like in your past jobs, has someone transitioned from engineering role or technical manager role? How did they do that transition, if there was any?
Probably I can go first. Yeah, it wasn't too far from what I experienced, except for the fact that I didn't come from the engineering side. I came probably from the biz dev side. But yeah, I think the first thing that you should do is to ask yourself, why do you want to be a product manager? And because it entails like holistic sense of perspective. It's like if you would give an analogy to an orchestra. For example, you're a really good violin player, but you wanted to become the orchestrator. You have to ask yourself, why do you want to be the orchestrator? And since you already have the engineering side on you, so that's one task list checked off. So I guess my advice would be to try to explore the things that you haven't explored. So if you're a really good developer, for example, and you haven't explored like a marketing role or talking to different stakeholders within the company, try to do so and try to see if that's something that you'll be comfortable doing. And in doing so, like orchestrating the whole thing, you'll eventually find yourself like in every step of the way, you should always ask yourself if you like or if you're passionate with what you're doing. Because as I've mentioned, one side is building the right product, but the other side is also building the product right. So in both aspects, you have to balance those out. And it entails a lot of comprehensive skills, not just engineering. In my case, not just sales, but rather, exploring other factors that can make you a good product manager. So yeah, it's basically like examining yourself and the reason why you want to be a product manager.
Thank you, John. Raf, did you want to also tackle that question, or do you want to tackle the next one?
I'll tackle the next one.
Okay. So how do you, SJ, how do you find mentors that will help you learn that you don't know about? How do you find mentors that will help you learn what you don't know about? Or how do you find mentors? Like, how did you, did somebody mentor you, like Matt shared, or how did you go about learning?
So the way I found mentors was pretty much through connections. Like I've worked with previous founders. I talk to them. Like there's a specific area that I feel weak at. Do you recommend anybody who's pretty much strong at this? Can you maybe give me an intro or ask for advice? I've actually asked a little bit of mentorship from the previous VP of product from Upload one time. So for me, the way I do it, just connections through LinkedIn mostly, from people I've previously worked with. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then John, like, how about you? Like, where did you have a mentor?
Mine's simple. Product PH.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, so the nice thing about the PH again, here, so please feel free to network afterwards. All right. For Max, how did you find mentors?
Yeah, so I think what is important is when you are looking at your career and when you are taking a career decision is always to choose your boss instead of the job. For instance, I started my career as a financial controller. I don't even know what was it. I mean, I really don't really know what I will be doing and where it will lead to me. But I know that my manager will be able to find something good for me and something that will fit with me. And then, progressively, I change of manager, and I change, I think, in 4 years, 8 times of job, because people were giving me more responsibility. So I start in finance, then I did marketing, I did IT, I did tech, I did sales, I did operation. And each time, it was some mentors that were trying to push me. So first advice is, I think, like, really carefully choose your boss. Find someone that will listen to you and try to give you opportunities to grow. And at least, so the job needs to be a bit relevant with what you want to do. But if you have a good boss, you will be able to switch anyway and find. So it's, first choose your boss. Then I guess there is I'm going to promote a bit Product PH as I'm here. I guess, the group, such a groups like Product PH are full of talents that are ready to exchange and that have created that kind of group actually to share their experience. So being in that kind of community, it's extremely precious. So, the third part is, if you are in a company which is well structured, you can ask for training and coaching. And so it can be interesting for you to try to identify who are the people that can coach you, who can provide training.
Any other follow-up questions from the audience? If none, I'll turn it over to Yana.
Okay. Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing your experience, and also to especially those who asked their questions. So before closing, I just want to ask that if there is someone who have right now in the situation of the transitioning or just joined to the PM, or yeah, just simply if you have any learning or want to share any your experience, I just want to hear. That's the last one. Maybe anyone can speak, but yep. Okay. Okay. So maybe everyone is shy, so I will just ask Anne. Do you have any the learning from tonight?
Yeah. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just have to close my camera. Yeah, there are a lot of great things I learned tonight. Being a person who'd been in marketing and product, I think it's amazing to know that it's never too late to be a I mean, if you're dreaming to be a product manager or product owner, it's never too late to follow your dreams, because you don't have there's no specific course from college that will lead you to that career. I think, based from what our guests mentioned, as long as you have that hunger for learning and you're always willing to learn new things, and you have that interest in creating business or creating something, you'd be a good product manager. Of course, that's just one thing. We also have to consider who our mentors are. Getting additional knowledge from books, with getting additional information or knowledge from the experiences of others. It's always helpful, and it's great to know actually that you don't have to be a genius to be an effective product manager. You just really have to have that grit. I think that's my main takeaway for tonight's discussion.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne. That's really great. Yeah. Also, I felt the everyone in the for the panel tonight, everyone is in a different situation, but we need to keep practicing and then adapt the situation. So it feels the matter of the how we quickly learn and then grow ourselves. And yeah, I think that for this aspect, there are tons of aspects we can practice. So maybe we can chat, we can dig further about this aspect. Maybe the outside event or for future, yeah, even on the network. So my last message is probably if you guys want to keep this kind of knowledge sharing, so we can dig more because all of us have a different background. So maybe if you're open to share, exchange your connection, like a LinkedIn, again, you can put your contact on the mural. That's the what I recommend through this community as an organizer. Okay. All right. So the last one, let me just introduce about. This is the last one. Is my request. So we have our Product PH have a Facebook group and a meetup group. So if you haven't yet joined to each of them, so you can also check. We will always update the event, and also we are looking for the contributor as an organizer team. So we've been doing this kind of event. Also, in the sideline, we're doing coaching program and the further activity. So we really need a lot of a supporter for this community. So just DM to me or Jan. Okay. So that's it. Thank you so much. So for today, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
John,
you.
Rob, and Max.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you to the organizers and guys. Thank you.
Yeah.